Hello, this is Kelly Kleinman, and you're listening to the DealershipNews.com podcast, where we spotlight the who's happening in the automotive industry. It's foot soldiers, visionaries, salesmen, GMs, owners, service managers, and industry vendors alike. Our guest today is an individual who works in marketing and advertising with car dealers out of Dallas, Texas. Texas is still the quintessential good old boys network where dealers are still largely more conservative than in other parts of the country, I feel it's safe to say. Our guest is not a good old boy. Rather, she's Courtney Garcia of the Montalbano Group. Thanks for joining us, Courtney.
Thank you, Kelly, for having me.
A pleasure. So, it's a question I ask everybody. How did you find yourself in the automotive industry? Have you always been interested in it, or did you just wake up one day and someone had given you an offer and there you were?
I guess it kind of goes both ways. I grew up in the used side of the industry more than the new side. I also grew up in a Harley-Davidson dealership, so I picked up some skills, I'd like to think, there. And I was always in the service industry as far as bartending and waitressing and just good talking with people. And one day a friend asked me if I'd be interested in 9 to 5, and ended up working selling digital platforms for a automotive advertising, data mining / a few other tools. So left there, kind of did my own thing, and white labeled a few products, resold a few products, and now I've stepped more back into the traditional side, and here I am.
Yeah, that's how we all fall into it. You just sort of adapt. At first you get, I don't know anything about this, and then you adapt to it, and before you know it, you become somewhat of an expert. And frankly, you just have to know more than your customer, right? It gives you an advantage on some level. So you got to tell me a little bit about the Montalbano Group. How long has the company been in business, and what PMAs do you serve over there? Is it strictly DFW and surrounding areas, or do you try to creep out nationally, kind of radiate out a little bit?
Oh, yes, we are definitely national. Herb Montalbano started the company back in 87, 88, 87, 30 years ago, over 30 years ago now. And we have dealers all the way from El Paso to Dallas, Longview, up to Texarkana, Arkansas, all through Louisiana, Mississippi, West Virginia, and Pittsburgh, Florida. So we are very diverse.
Well, you said Pittsburgh and not Pittsburgh, Texas, because there actually is a Pittsburgh, Texas.
Right. No, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Sure.
And Warren, Pennsylvania as well.
Okay. That's actually where my family's, some of my family's from Warren, Pennsylvania. So when you walk, yeah, beautiful Warren. It's way out there in the sticks, old steel mill town. Yeah. So, Courtney, when you walk into a new dealership, how do you find the right creative mix between digital and traditional media? Because I know you come from it's a relatively conservative outfit. I mean, he's been doing it for 30 years, so his roots are in probably more traditional media. And do you treat those channels in two different fashions? And then the other question, the follow-up would be, do you do all creative in-house?
Okay. I guess I'll start with the first. When I walk into a dealership, I meet with usually the GM, the owner, GSM, or marketing manager. And I let them tell me what they're doing currently. And so I can get an idea of where they're at and where they want to be. And from there, we just kind of brainstorm, and I see what's working, what they're seeing ROI from, and what weed out the rest that is not effective in their dealership.
Mm-hmm. And then, do you do all your creative in-house? And then I have the third part to that question would be, how do you deduce the ROI with traditional media at this point?
Well, we do handle everything in-house. I would say we do a lot of brandizing for dealerships through traditional media, so that, I grew up in Dallas, so I grew up hearing Huffines has it. And when I came to the Montalbano Group, little did I know that it was my future boss who wrote the jingle over 30 years ago.
Oh, Lord.
And so, I mean, it definitely, there's always going to be controversy about the two, but I think there has to be a balance somewhere, and it differs. So for each dealership.
Yeah, that is true, isn't it? Share with us how most of the dealers in your neck of the woods are advertising. What percentage is traditional print, TV, radio, and what percentage is going to digital? And then how do they break those budgets down? It's not,
Well,
yeah, I don't want to be too specific, but I mean, if you could just give us an idea of, what's the thinking these days?
well, it's hard to pinpoint unless, we went brand to manufacturer because of their qualifications for co-op. Each brand is different, and I would say hardly anyone we represent does newspaper. If they do, it's very little. Most of our dealers are at least 50% traditional.
Mm-hmm.
And their budgets may range from $1,000 a month to $250,000 a month. So it's so hard to pinpoint specifics and percentages, that we represent a wide variety.
Sure, I would assume that it varies. For example, Subaru does a lot of their own, the OEM has a ton of great advertising out there. You probably don't need that much other than throwing up your dealership tag, right? So trying to, I remember we had Cal Worthington out here, and a fellow named Ralph Williams. I'm trying to remember when I lived in Texas, who some of the interesting guys were, who did a lot of the local advertising, which was always a strong draw. You trusted that guy. He was sort of like the local celebrity. But
yeah.
I'm sure you had some. I'm sure if I went onto YouTube, I could probably find some of the really classic Texans, and I know there are a lot of them. Actually, I did an article on it about a year and a half ago. So I understand. So talk to me a little bit about then, video. And what you do online as far as incorporating it into social media. And give me just, if you could elucidate a little bit on that. I'm just kind of interested in what's going on, because your numbers and basically what you're telling me are a little bit different than some of the folks in other parts of the country, specifically Southern California, where almost every dealership they're at 80-90% online at this point. They've really
definitely
cut their advertising down.
Video is a definitely one of our stronger platforms, but I wouldn't necessarily call it video as so much as, because there's so many parts that go into it as far as creative and production, the media buying, editing. We do handle just production upon request if it doesn't interfere with any of our current clients, because we are exclusive in each DMA to our clients. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people want just to do a Facebook video or a spot on the YouTube ads, but that's not our main focus. But we do that for a lot of our clients.
Do you also do the distribution throughout the internet? Do you do you do the media buying you mentioned? So do you also do the digital media buying as well?
We can. We don't do a lot of it. Usually, it's a lot of the dealerships now have someone there who handles that, as far as their social media manager or their some of their marketing managers,
Sure.
e-commerce director.
Sure. I always, you wonder what kind of quality individuals you get handling those kinds of campaigns. It's like when they take that off of the plate of the professional advertising or marketing company and they bring it in house. You just wonder, how much they suffer, if at all, especially in a digital world. There are probably more moving pieces, but maybe less cost. I'm just guessing. But let's talk about busy seasons, because I know that we're not too far away from the 4th of July, but then we get into the slow season, which is basically in August and such. But what are your busiest seasons or sales events, and how long does a company like Montalbano, I think I pronounced it with a soft A, Montalbano, how long do you need to prepare a campaign before launch?
Well, our busiest season is definitely the end of the year. Close out, after September, ready to get the current year models off the lot for our dealers. Black Friday and Christmas, truck month, but as far from conception to creative and execution, it only takes us a few days if we're on a deadline. We'd like to have a little bit more time than that, but if we're on a deadline, we'll get it done.
Yeah, it's and then of course they want it now, right? Like totally
Yes.
works that way. So, hey, where do you see car sales in your neck of the woods for the rest of 2019? I'm just curious. I think there's a lot of optimism in, car sales that we're seeing them a little bit flat, kind of nationally, but Texas is its own country almost. How's it working for you over there?
It's great. I think it's going to skyrocket even further in 2019. They've got a lot of competitive manufacturers out here who are coming up with something new every day. A lot of hungry new dealers who are coming in for success, and it's always fun to watch for sure. And I think the millennials see the positive, and at least down here, like you said, with the demographics, it changes for each area of the country. But I think 2019 is going to be great.
Positive outlook from a positive person, Courtney Garcia, out of Texas, my favorite state. I will honestly say by far my favorite state. I thank you so much for joining us today, Courtney.
Thank you so much for having me, Kelly.
Folks, that was and is Courtney Garcia out of the Montalbano Group out of Dallas, Fort Worth. And this is yours truly, Kelly Kleinman, dealershipnews.com. This is our podcast for a Friday morning. Have a great weekend, everybody.